Hey there, I'm Jackie Ferris. This week on the 302, we are at Winterthur checking out a new exhibit called Almost Unknown, the African-American Picture Gallery. It's a passionate and dynamic, colorful telling of the Black experience in America. Get ready, the 302 is taking you back in time. Welcome to Winterthur. Each year we love to come and check out their main exhibit. This year it's an amazing exhibit called Almost Unknown. I'm joined by the Director of Collections, Alexandra Deutsch, to talk a little bit more about it. Alexandra, thank you so much for joining us. And I gotta say, this is the beginning of the exhibit. Wow, our viewers just don't know what's ahead for them.
It is an exhibit like you have never seen before. It's sight and sound and beauty and even moments that are a little scary and fabulous. It's an adventure, it's immersive, and I think for sure it's the most immersive exhibit we've ever done. And seeing it come to life with the guest curator, Jonathan Michael Square, when none of us really knew where it was going to be or look like at one point, and what it evolved into has been just magical to see transform the galleries.
So how did this story begin? How did it come to Winterthur and become the, star attraction of the year?
Honestly, it was meeting Jonathan Michael Square in Baltimore when I worked for the Maryland Center for History and Culture. We had two pieces of livery that had been worn by formerly enslaved individuals, and I was referred to this person, Jonathan Michael Square, because he studied Brooks Brothers, who produced much of this livery for the enslaved. And we met, and I honestly, within 5 minutes, just knew that I was in the presence of real brilliance. And we worked together on those pieces. They now, one of them is at the Met in an exhibit. And I just thought someday I want to work on a show with him, because this person has such a unique vision of history of material culture and is also an artist and such a creative. And when I arrived at Winterthur in 2019 and we needed to construct an exhibition schedule, I made a list of people. These are dream shows, these are dream people I'd love to work with. And I think in 2020 I picked up the phone and said, would you curate something at Winterthur? No parameters. Yeah. No limitations. I'm not giving you a vision. What I want is your vision for what you can do with this collection. And he said yes. And we have been on this journey for these years, and it's been amazing to work with him and have him come to the collection and then decide where he was going to intersect with our collection.
And we're going to meet him. We're going to get a guided tour as much as we can in a half hour through this exhibit. But talk to me a little bit about, what are the themes behind Almost Unknown, and, what was it like to kind of work with him, or I guess, just kind of observing his work as it unfolded into what it is?
So it took a while. It started with a lot of walkthroughs in the house and just through the collection, really just with his eyes, his lens. That actually led us to the first object. And to me, the first object you encounter, which is this simple trivet, I had walked by hundreds of times. I had never looked at it. I had no memory of interacting with it. Mm-hmm. And Jonathan looked down and he said, oh my gosh, it's a Sankofa. And I didn't know what that was.
What is it?
It's a West African symbol that means go back and get it, but it also translates into looking back to look forward. And to me, that's the brilliance of Jonathan's vision, is that he has allowed all of us, the curators, the exhibitions team, the interpretive team, every one of us who've worked with him, to re-see this collection in such a powerful way through his eyes. And after that, he was familiar with the essay by William J. Wilson, written in 1859, and it is called Almost Unknown because it was a fantasy of a gallery that didn't exist then and has never existed. And he had this idea to make it exist in the galleries of Winterthur with our collection.
And it's all based on the African American experience in the 1900s and before.
And I think in a very modern way, I see it at its core as in this call 2 years before the Civil War breaks out to recognize Black excellence. It's a call to educate Black youth. It's a celebration of Black achievement despite hardship. It is a celebration of Black intellectual power during that time, and it is so resonant to look at something written so long ago and realize that it's kind of the essence of Sankofa. It's, you have to go back and get it to understand now. And to me, this is a gallery that exists in the present, takes you back in time, and also takes you forward in time and moves you to think in new ways about the Black lived experience, about our national culture. And so to me, it's, in my career, by far the most powerful show I've ever had the privilege to work on.
And it really is amazing as you go through. There are things that, you know, perhaps folks are familiar with, like Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Yes.
There is a text. You know, there's an artist that is well known, especially here in Wilmington and in Delaware. But there's so much that people don't know
Yes.
about African American history that just comes to life in a very dynamic way.
To me, I have to say that our feedback, we have an interactive at the end of the exhibition, and because the essay has blank picture frames that are yet to be filled, and the narrator just says, there are things yet to be filled in this gallery, we created that opportunity for visitors to fill their frames, and they get posted on the wall at the end. And when you read what visitors are writing, how this is making them think and reflect on culture, on how we appreciate history, on the stories known and unknown, and the things familiar but that can be made to seem new. And so you might have an image of Mount Vernon that you look at in the show, but now through Jonathan's lens and the essay, you are awakening an understanding of a very different Mount Vernon than what we think of today. And we see that in the visitor feedback. And to me, what could be better in any exhibit to accomplish that impact on a visitor?
Well, we're certainly going to find out. Alexandra, thank you so much for joining us. When we get back, we're going to take a tour of Almost Unknown.
I'm Rabbi Nick Renner, and it was a joy, as we say in Hebrew, machaya, a life-giving thing, to celebrate and talk about Hanukkah with 302.
Welcome back. I know it's a little dark, but we want you to get the full experience of Almost Unknown. I'm joined by Jonathan Michael Square, who is the master behind this vision, the guest curator for Winterthur and this exhibit. So thank you so much for joining us. We want to get through the whole thing. So talk to me a little bit about this entryway and how grand it is.
Yes, so the entryway is inspired by this object, which I think Alexandra explained a little to you about, but this is a trivet, and when I saw it, it reminded me of Sankofa. So that principle of looking back to the past to create a more equitable future and present is sort of the driving ethos for the exhibition.
Fantastic. Well, let's go into the first room. As you come through, it kind of twists and turns all the way through. Now, this is basically, we are jumping into an essay by William Wilson, right?
William J. Wilson, exactly. Yes, we wanted the exhibition to mirror the experience of reading the essay. So when you come, you'll see it's very meandering, very circuitous. There are a lot of twists and turns and corners. So yes, this is the first room that you encounter.
It's beautiful.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So the essay describes objects in an imagined picture gallery. And these are the first few objects that he describes. He describes a slave ship. So he chose this textile that represents the slave trade. He describes the first and last colored editor. So we chose Delaware native, Marianne Shadd, to represent the first and last colored editor. These are two objects that we actually borrowed. A diorama that represents the Boston Massacre, and this painting of an African landscape.
And tell us about the chair.
Yes, so in the essay, he describes an armchair where he sits and sort of observes the picture gallery. So we chose this chair from Winterthur's collection to represent that part of the essay.
So let's go on to one of the famous texts in literature, Uncle Tom's Cabin. As you go through it, really is evocative of, you know, you're walking through a story. I mean, you did a really good job of putting this together. So tell us about where we are now.
Well, I can't take credit for the design. I have to thank Sally Comport and Chuck Mack for the design of this exhibition. They did an amazing job. The exhibition is very immersive. But yes, in the next part of the exhibition, you encounter this text, which many of you probably are familiar with. You may have had to read it in grade school or middle school or high school, but Uncle Tom's Cabin. And so this part of the exhibition is supposed to represent the Underground Railroad, and of course, the Underground Railroad figures prominently in Uncle Tom's Cabin.
So talk to us a little bit about, you know, just the collaboration that had to go through, you know, taking people through a story that is true, has depth, you know, and to give people a concept of, you know, the African American experience in the 19th century.
Absolutely, it was definitely a collaboration. I mean, I worked with the curatorial staff here at Winterthur. We worked with the exhibition designers, Sally and Chuck, the education department, marketing. So it was a collaborative effort to bring this to fruition.
Absolutely. Now we have a lantern here, and all of the objects are from Winterthur's collection, and you had to go through painstakingly and try to figure out how they fit into the essay. So talk to us about this part.
Yes, so this is a handheld lamp. It's from Winterthur's collection. It was not used on the Underground Railroad, but it's a visual representation of a tool that a freedom seeker might have used to make their way north.
You can just see them like going through, you know, the darkened forest, trying to find their way to safety, to someone that would help them get to freedom. So it really is amazing. So let's go on, and this is a really cool segment of the exhibit. It's very regal.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for picking up on that. Yeah, we chose this fleur-de-lis wallpaper to represent sort of the regality of the Haitian monarchy. So Haiti figures prominently in the essay because Haiti was the first nation in the Western Hemisphere to win, first Black republic to win its independence in the Western Hemisphere. And so this essay is representing that exactly. So this is a drawing of a sugar plantation in the French Caribbean. Toussaint Louverture was enslaved on a plantation, so this is a representation of Toussaint Louverture. There's also this portrait of Sulike Faustin, who was the Haitian monarch who was in power when the essay was written. So this is sort of the Haiti part of the exhibition.
Absolutely, and there are, you know, explanations for everything, all of the pieces that you bring together to kind of bring these exhibits to life. You can look at little explanations on the side. So I'm excited to go into the next room, which will kind of give us a different perspective than we're used to about our founding father, George Washington. So come with us.
And one thing you'll notice in the exhibition is that there is my interpretation of the objects, but there's also passages from the actual essay. And the passages are in sort of like 19th century typography, whereas my interpretation is in a more modern script.
So talk to us a little bit about Wilson's depiction, his version of, you know, Mount Vernon and George Washington.
It's one of my favorite parts of the essay, actually. He's very critical of George Washington and his legacy, particularly George Washington as an enslaver. So he describes Mount Vernon, but it's a Mount Vernon that's in decadence, in ruins. And we wanted this part of the exhibition to feel like a ruined Mount Vernon.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit. We have a bust here.
Yes.
And it's displayed in a way that, you know, kind of blends the founding father and some of the people that he may have enslaved.
Exactly. So this is the bust of George Washington. It actually is directly from the house. It's normally displayed in the house, but we took it out of the house and we put it on this pedestal, which we wrapped in kente cloth, which is an African textile, to show that the foundation of George Washington's might and power rest on the labor of enslaved people.
And talk to us a little bit about some of the portraits that are on the wall.
Yes. So this portrait is also normally in the house, and this is of the Washington family. And as you can see, in the margins of the painting, there's a enslaved manservant. It's been postulated that it's Christopher Shields, which is one of George Washington's manservants. And normally when it's in the house, it's in a room that's slightly darkened for conservation reasons. So bringing it to the light, you really are able to see this enslaved person, possibly Christopher Shields.
Do we know much about him?
We don't know a lot, but we do know his name and we do know basic biographical information. But of course, this is the late 18th century. So we can't jump into a subjectivity.
Sure. So, and there is like a little pocket room
nook here.
right in here. So we're gonna hop in real quick. So tell us a little bit about the room we're standing in and another portrait.
Yes, so this is a representation of America. And if you look really closely at this particular object, you can see representation of a female representation of the United States, but also there's in the corner a black child reading a book. And the reason we chose this object is because Black childhood figures prominently in the essay. We talked about Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Yeah.
There's this object. There's another quilt that a free Black boy was involved in constructing. So yeah, Black childhood figures prominently in this.
Fantastic. Now we're going to look at that quilt when we return.
Hi, I'm Dr. Morgan Hamilton from the Delaware Contemporary. We think that art comes alive on the 302.
Welcome back. We are getting a guided tour with Jonathan Michael Square into Winterthur's Almost Unknown. We're deep into the exhibit, and I want to talk a little bit about where we are. You've set the stage so beautifully, with the scenes and the lighting and all of this. It's all coming together, but I want to ask you, first of all, you've got a painting by Duncanson that's
Yes.
part of Winterthur's collection. Tell us a little bit about the painting and the artist himself.
Absolutely. So Robert Duncanson is a famous African-American landscape painter, and we're in the part of the exhibition that represents the Black Forest. So as I mentioned,
That's nice.
the exhibition is based on an essay, and in the middle of the essay, he goes into a Black Forest, this metaphorical, fantastical space, and this is meant to represent that. And so we wanted a representation of a Black landscape, so we chose this painting, this famous object in Winterthur's collection that was created by Robert Duncanson.
It really is cool. And there's also something here that you may not know. If you look at it, you may not know what it is until you get up close. So talk to me a little bit about this object.
Yes, this is a slave badge. In Charleston, enslaved people were made to wear badges to sort of mark them and identify them. And this is sort of in this part of the essay, there's a description of two portraits, and one is of a enslaver, and one is of a slave catcher, and this is a representation of the slave catcher.
Wow. Very powerful. Very, very powerful. Okay, so let's move through this. This really kind of shifts the mood. We go from the forest into, how would you describe this room?
Wow, so this is the part of the essay where he describes the Amikans, which is a sort of metaphor for the white race.
Okay.
And so one great thing that the exhibition designers did is that they created this font that you see on the wall behind you. It's because he finds these tablets that are in a script that's unreadable. So they created this font for this exhibition.
And as you walk through, there are different objects from the collection. What are we looking at here?
This is a silhouette by Moses Williams. Moses Williams was a famous silhouette cutter, a man of African descent. He worked in the Peel Museum. And so this is an example of an object that was created by a Black maker.
It really is interesting that, objects like these are, around today, and we can look at them and we can enjoy the history. Now, as we move through, there's several ceramics. You've got one ceramic pot there with an image of an enslaved person, and then you have this. Tell me the stories behind the two ceramics.
Yes, so this one in particular is by David Drake. And the great thing about this object is that it was in the previous exhibition in this very same space, Transformations. So I like the sort of continuity between the previous exhibition and this exhibition. But this is another famous object in Winterthur's collection, created by David Drake, famous black powder, and I think it looks beautiful.
It does. It really does. And again, I'm going to compliment you again on setting the stage. But talk to us about the other ceramic that's in the other room. We can stay here and just,
Yeah, so that's a jar that was used in a ceramic shop to advertise the different ceramics, the different designs that one could buy. And at the very bottom of this jar, you see a motif that was popular in the 19th century. Am I not a brother and a man? Am I not a man or a brother? And it's repeated on a signet that's projected on the wall behind it. And in that case, it's a woman. Am I not a sister or a woman?
Can you tell us a little bit more about the Am I Not a Man mantra, or what was it and why was it used?
It's from the abolitionist movement. It was a sort of rallying call for abolitionists to sort of identify with people of African descent.
People that didn't think that slavery was appropriate.
Exactly.
Yeah. A lot of people may not know that. I mean, because I think a lot of history gets lost, as we progress, which is why it's so important that we have exhibits like this so we can fully understand our past.
Exactly. And that's the driving ethos behind the exhibition, going back to Sankofa, looking to the past to understand our present and our future.
Absolutely. Now, there is a film that was put together about the making of this exhibit that you can see if you go through these doors here, and it's really cool. They actually show cutting out some of the caricatures and things like that. But before we get to that, tell me about the church and the reason you decided to include this in the exhibit along with the keys.
Absolutely. So the Black church figures prominently in the essay, and we chose this set of keys that are from the Mount Salem United Methodist Church as a representation of the Black church. It has a really interesting history. They were donated to the Delaware Historical Society by Vernon and Bryant, a local reverend. And it's just a physical manifestation of what's described in the essay.
Very symbolic, very symbolic. And the film, if you go in here, I don't know how long it is, but you can actually see Jonathan and the museum staff creating this exhibit. There's an interview with the various folks. It really is something, if you come to the exhibit, you want to check out. Jonathan, let's go check out this quilt, because this is one of the coolest things in the exhibit. Talk to us about, it looks like a flag.
And you're absolutely right. It's made from recycled bunting, so it absolutely was sort of a flag of sorts. But it was made into a quilt by a Quaker abolitionist. Her name is Priscilla Ballinger-Leadham, and she made it in collaboration with a young black boy who worked in her household. So she sewed the quilt from recycled bunting, but if you look really closely, there's an eagle sort of stitched in the middle of the quilt.
Yeah.
And that eagle was drawn by Lewis Halbert, the black boy who worked in her household. And you can see it projected on the wall here.
What's really cool about this is if you get really close, and we'll show a picture of this, but you can see it looks like the eye of the eagle. It's the only color embroidery in the whole thing. But let's take a look at this. It really is interesting that you've projected this on the wall so people can see just the symbolism of it,
And going back to what I said about Black childhood, this is another example of an object that involves a Black child.
So let's go to the cutouts here. What do we have here? This is really something that's reminiscent of like a Grimm's fairy tale. I feel like I'm watching something, a story unfold without words. What are we looking at?
So this is the brainchild of one of the exhibition designers. Her name is Sally Comport. And they were looking at a lot of crankies, that sort of old-timey animation style. And this part of the essay describes visitors to the gallery. And these are sort of representation of those visitors.
Fantastic. This whole exhibit is amazing, and thank you so much for giving us the walking tour. And of course, there's so much that you weren't able to see because, you know, we had to walk through so quickly. So make sure you come and check it out. Jonathan, thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
We'll be right back. Are you enjoying our guided tour? Well, if you pay a visit to Winterthur, make sure you snap a picture and share it with us on Facebook. Now, here's a couple of other things you might want to check out. For more information on this or any of the exhibits, you can visit winterthur.org. That'll do it for this week's episode of the 302. Make sure you follow us on Facebook for some behind-the-scenes content you're just not going to get anywhere else. We're going to leave you now with some beauty shots of the fields at Winterthur in summertime. Until next time, I'm Jackie Ferris. Tell them you saw it on the 302.